Hey guys, Dave Shinsky here. I'm going to do a breakdown of AJ Puck. He's one of the top prospects of 2016, pitcher from Florida. He's having a pretty good year this year. In 14 games, he's got a 2.88 in 65 innings with 90 strikeouts, but 31 walks. And that's what I want to talk about is kind of his consistency and being able to repeat his delivery. So he's a good breakdown for me, and just because he is a dominant pitcher and he has some things to work on. So I first want to talk about his efficiency of getting down the mound. He does have a really good tendency here on this side view here as he picks up his leg. He does use his back knee and hip to get out and get down the mound. Okay, so that's a good sign. But one thing he does is, I'm going to go to behind clip here and kind of show you as he gets into that same position. What he does is, instead of really like kind of pulling the ball out and coming towards the camera, he kind of shows it down behind his thigh. And I see a lot of guys doing that just because in Little League they get used to kind of hiding the ball and trying to create deception. And what this does is it just creates a little bit lack of movement in the arm swing. So as you watch, as I go to the next couple clips, on this clip here, all right, as the ball gets behind his butt or behind his back, you're going to see his elbow kind of drive up towards the sky, and that's what we call elbow hike. So what that does is it just creates a little bit of timing issues later on in his delivery. But what he does really well is he doesn't let his elbow get above his shoulder. Okay, so at this position, he's going to start now to open up and start to turn his hips, so rotate his hips and get into a good position. And this is how he kind of helps himself and saves himself from really getting out of whack and seeing more walks than he does. So what he does well is creates a little thoracic mobility, is what we like to call it here, as he's starting to open up his hip. You see that Florida kind of going up towards the sky. So this logo here, Florida logo, as he's starting to get up into his foot strike position. Okay, he really helps himself by, and I'm going to switch over to the backside, is helps himself get up into that thoracic position, and that's where we like to see your positioning at foot strike. So what I see is he's just a little bit forward. All right, so you're thinking about where his head is in relationship to his belt. I'll draw a line here quickly and think about his spine angle, and it's just a little bit behind his belt buckle. Okay, so or in front of his belt buckle. So we like to see that on an angle just a little bit, but he's in a great position to throw the ball forward and just really let himself go as he's turning into his rotation. One thing, as he starts to get into that rotation, okay, he does a really good job with his upper half. Okay, so if you're thinking about creating that, and I talk a lot about the external rotation in my other videos, I like to see that inside of his body. So what do I mean by that? Again, inside of his body. I know this is on a different angle, but he's pretty much inside of his body with his external rotation. And that's where your arm is 90 degrees behind your head and even with the ground. And this creates, and this is definitely relates to velocity in pitchers. So I'm going to get to the same position here at foot strike and at external rotation, And one thing I do also see, and I think is a culprit of why he's a little bit off target sometimes, and he likes to maybe pull the ball, is because of this back foot. This back foot comes off the rubber, and it's not necessarily because he's pushing off the rubber. I think this has to do with a little bit of lack of core strength, because when I see him start to go forward, he still has the ball in his hand and he's off the rubber, and what I see is just a little bit bend in his back. Okay, so kids that I have online and in person, the culprit to this is a little bit of core strength. So if he works on his core moving forward, I think that he'll be able to stop himself and stop his hips from rotating or going forward. Okay, so when he gets up into his finish, you see his hips kind of shift forward. He could be a little bit better at just straightening out this front leg, so he has kind of this bent leg here, and it kind of stays bent as he goes through, and then at where he's going forward, that's when his leg straightens up. So he can gain velocity and gain a lot of less stress on his arm by letting that and making that foot stay down and creating that better straightening out or bracing up of the front leg. And you see it here on the side, is he kind of is hunched over, and as he's hunching over, and his foot goes back down, as you see here, kind of comes up and then goes back down. If he stays in that position through his throw, that would really help him out with not only his accuracy but velocity as well. He does throw about 92 to 94, and probably tops out about 95, but he does use his upper half really well through the finish. He just should just think about keeping his core just a little bit stronger and not letting that hunch happen, because he kind of loses his target sometimes with his head because of that. So as he comes down, he's still looking, and then he kind of just lets his head kind of go down, and he's looking at the ground here. Okay, so he's a good breakdown, because I really like what he does mechanically, but he has some stuff to work on, and I think it's not necessarily mentally or mechanically, it's just kind of physically. He has to get a little stronger in his core. He's a big kid, and just needs to use what he's got given a little bit better in his core and through his throw. Okay, so great breakdown of AJ Puck. He's going to be a first rounder. He may be number 1 overall, but all in all, everyone has something that they need to work on, and I think AJ's big thing is maybe a little bit of core strength. All in all, good job. Hope you enjoyed it. Hear from me in a couple weeks, and I'll have a new picture for you that I'm breaking down. Hope all is well. Thanks a lot. This is Dave Shinsky at Baseball Rebellion.